My girlfriend never posted me online. Her profile was all about being a single free spirit. When I asked, she said, relationships ruin branding. So I made a fake account. She flirted, sent the same poems, and planned to meet. Same restaurant. Same night. I sat back against the sofa, staring at the empty glass in my hand. The room was quiet now, the hum of the city outside creeping in through the open window. I had just seen Alice post her latest Instagram story. Another trip, another curated moment. No mention of me. Her usual line. Single soul, unstoppable goal. I couldn't stop my mind from replaying it. All the moments she'd told me how much she loved the stability I gave her, how much she appreciated that I was real, that she was grounded because of me. Yet here we were, her entire world, built on layers of manufactured perfection, and I was just the backdrop. I heard her heels on the hallway floor, the soft thud of her steps signaling her return from whatever impromptu event she'd been to. I didn't need to ask where she'd been. I knew she'd come back late, like always, just enough time to say goodnight and slip into the bathroom to check her phone. I didn't stand up when she walked in, didn't turn my head. I just kept my eyes on the glass in front of me, waiting for her to break the silence. She didn't disappoint. "Why are you still up?" she asked, her tone too light, too rehearsed. "Just thinking," I said. My voice was steady, like I hadn't been unraveling inside all night. She leaned against the doorframe, her posture casual, but her eyes were scanning the room. "About what?" "About how much you've been posting lately," I replied. I wasn't even trying to sound passive anymore. I wasn't holding back. "About how much of it I don't appear in." Her eyes narrowed. "It's called branding, Marcus. I've told you this before." I clenched my jaw. "Yeah, I know. Branding. That's what it's all about. Except you never once told your followers that you had someone in your life who wasn't some #ready, picture-perfect prop." She flinched, the words landing harder than I intended. But I was done. I didn't want to sugarcoat this anymore. I was tired of pretending. She crossed her arms. "Are you really doing this right now? After everything we've been through? I didn't think you'd be the type to get so insecure." I stood up, finally meeting her eyes. "Insecure? No, not insecure. But I've been a fool, Alice. I've been played." Her expression shifted for a moment. Genuine confusion, maybe even a flicker of guilt. But then she just shook her head, as if she didn't understand what I was saying. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about all the little things, Alice. All the ways you've kept me out of your life, while telling me I'm the one who grounds you. You've got me pegged as some guy who's happy to play the supporting role while you're out there building your brand." I threw up my hands, frustrated. "You think I don't notice? You think I don't know when I'm being erased from the picture?" She took a step forward, clearly trying to keep the upper hand. "You're being ridiculous. You know I need to focus on my career right now. This has nothing to do with you. It's business." "Business," I repeated, my voice a little louder than I wanted it to be. "Business. That's what you call it. Cutting me out of everything that matters to you? That's how you see me now? As just another checkmark on your to-do list?" Alice's lips pressed together, the mask of calm cracking just a little. She was searching for words, trying to find a way to make me understand, to make it all seem justified. But there was no justification for what I was seeing. "You don't get it, Marcus," she said finally, the edge of frustration creeping into her tone. "This is who I am. I can't just drop everything for some guy who wants to feel seen all the time. I've worked hard to get to this point. I've sacrificed things. I'm trying to build something that means something." I laughed bitterly. "Sacrifices? Yeah, you've made sacrifices. Just not the ones that involve your image, your followers, or your shiny little world, huh?" Her face flushed with anger now, her eyes snapping to mine. "You think I'm doing all this just for them? Just for social media? You have no idea what it's like. The pressure, the constant expectation." "No, I get it," I said, cutting her off. "I get it all too well. It's not about the pressure, Alice. It's about you using me to prop up your perfect little illusion. It's about you keeping me around for the realness you claim to need, while your followers get the fantasy." Her chest heaved with a breath, like she was trying to keep herself under control. But the walls had come down. There was no more pretending. "You don't understand," she said again, her voice more defensive this time. "You don't understand what it takes to build this, to build me. I've been doing this alone for so long. And if you don't like the way I'm doing it, then maybe..." "Maybe what?" I interrupted, stepping closer to her now, my voice low. "Maybe I should just walk away? Is that it? Because I'm done, Alice. I'm done being your backup plan, your prop, your real man who doesn't get seen. She blinked, her expression shifting from anger to something unreadable. For a second, I thought I might have gotten through to her. But then she just exhaled, slowly, like she was letting go of something she no longer cared to hold. If that's what you need to do, she said, finally, voice steady but cutting, then go ahead. But don't expect me to change who I am just to fit into your idea of what we're supposed to be. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, looking at her, the reality of the moment sinking in. This wasn't going to get better. Not with her. Not with us. The facade had already cracked. Fine, I said, turning toward the door. I'll go. But know this, Alice. You've built your brand, your life, your vision, and I'm no longer a part of it. I didn't wait for her response. I didn't need to. The door clicked shut behind me, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was stepping out of something that had never been real to begin with. I didn't drive home right away. Instead, I parked a few blocks down, hands gripping the wheel, trying to shake off the weight in my chest. My head was still buzzing with everything I'd just said to Alice. Everything I'd finally said out loud. But even as the words had left my mouth, I couldn't tell if I felt relieved or empty. I hadn't expected her to agree with me. Hell, I hadn't expected her to apologize. But I also hadn't expected her to look so indifferent. Like it was just another part of the game for her, something to shrug off and move past. I checked my phone. 3 missed texts. 2 from Des, 1 from my sister. I wasn't in the mood to deal with anyone right now. So, I turned it off. The drive home was a blur, my mind racing through everything from the past year. Those carefully curated weekends, the subtle digs she'd made at me, and every moment when I'd realized how much of me was being erased from her life. I knew what was coming next, though. I knew it would be easier for her to go on as if nothing had happened than for me to keep pretending everything was fine. When I finally made it to my apartment, I didn't even bother to change. I just dropped my keys on the counter and sat on the couch, head in my hands, feeling the exhaustion of the whole damn relationship hit me all at once. I hadn't been the fool in this, not entirely. She'd known what she was doing, even if I'd ignored it for too long. She'd made it clear where I stood in her world, a necessary accessory for the real show. I wasn't her partner. I was her grounding force, the one she could lean on when the image she sold needed some authenticity, but never enough to truly belong in it. And still, I kept giving. I thought of her Instagram again. The photos, the captions, her ability to package herself into this beautiful, shiny product for an audience that never saw past the surface. Maybe that was what she had wanted all along. Someone to admire her from the outside, without getting too close to the mess behind the facade. I heard a knock at the door, sharp and quick. I wasn't in the mood for company, but I figured it was Des. No one else would come around this time of night. I opened it without a word, and there she was, standing in the hallway, looking both hesitant and determined, like she didn't know whether she should be there or not. "What do you want?" I asked, barely making eye contact. Des raised an eyebrow, her lips pressed tight like she was holding something back. "I was going to ask if you were okay, but seeing as you just walked out of your place like a bat out of hell, I'm guessing not." I stepped aside and let her in without saying anything. She took a breath, glanced around, and then plopped down on the couch opposite me. "I saw your texts," she said, glancing at her phone. "But I figured I'd better come over and see for myself what the hell's going on." I sat down across from her, resting my elbows on my knees, and exhaled, trying to collect myself. "It's done," I said simply, the words sounding hollow even to me. "Done with who?" she asked, voice sharp but concerned. I met her eyes, my stomach nodding. "Alice, it's over. Finally." Des didn't look surprised, just nodded slowly. "You mean it this time?" "I mean it," I said, my tone firm. "I don't know why it took me this long to figure it out, but I'm done being her backup. Done being the one she plays up when it's convenient for her and then erases when it isn't." Des sat back, her arms crossed, studying me with that look of hers, the one that was equal parts curiosity and worry. She didn't say anything for a while, just let the silence settle between us. "I knew you were getting there," she finally said, her voice low. "You've been walking on eggshells around her for months. But I guess it's good you've finally figured it out." I scoffed. "Yeah, well, took me long enough." "You're not mad at yourself, are you?" Des asked, leaning forward. "I mean, you've got a lot of reasons to be pissed at her, but don't start blaming yourself for falling for her bullshit. I don't blame myself, I said, shaking my head. I don't know. I kept hoping it would be different, that she would actually see me for me, not just as some accessory to her lifestyle. But it's like I was invisible the whole time. Des nodded. I get it. I do. But don't let that mess with your head, man. You're not the one who turned it into a game. She did. I don't know if I'm angry or just tired. I ran my hand over my face, trying to shake the exhaustion in my bones. I'm done, but I'm not sure what to do with all this space now that she's gone. It feels like everything I put into this was just wasted. Hey, Des said, her voice firm now. It wasn't a waste. You learned something. And yeah, it hurts, but it's better you figure it out now than years down the road. I nodded, but it didn't feel much better. What now? Des asked, standing up and grabbing her jacket. You want me to help you clean up the wreckage, or? I laughed softly. What wreckage? Come on, Marcus, she said, eyes narrowing. You've still got a lot to unpack from this. I stood up, walking toward the kitchen to pour myself another drink. I guess I'll figure that part out later. For now, I just want to forget about her for a while. Des watched me as I poured the whiskey, her gaze thoughtful. That's probably for the best, she said, nodding. But just don't get lost in that, okay? Don't let it swallow you whole. I set the glass down and met her eyes, feeling the weight of her words sink in. She was right. I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. At some point, I had to take a step forward. I'll be fine, I said, swallowing a mouthful of whiskey. I'll figure it out. She gave me a small, knowing smile. I know you will. Just don't be too hard on yourself. I won't, I said, but I didn't believe it. The road ahead was going to be messy, but for the first time, I was ready to face it. The following week was a blur. Every time I passed a mirror, I didn't recognize the guy staring back at me. I felt like I was moving through everything in a daze, like I had to keep going, but I didn't know where. Work was the same as always, busy, full of distractions, but nothing that felt real anymore. The space Alice had left was still there, taking up more room than I'd ever imagined. It wasn't like I missed her. I didn't miss the games or the subtle manipulation, but I missed the illusion, the idea of something I thought was real, and that mess of emotions felt like it weighed a ton. I didn't expect the next blow to come the way it did. I was at my desk when I saw the notification on my phone. It was one of Alice's stories. I hadn't checked her social media since that night, but I guess curiosity got the best of me. The first thing that caught my eye was the timestamp, just a few hours ago. It was a picture of her in Morocco, same exotic filter, same perfect lighting, same flawless smile. But what stood out wasn't the image, it was the caption. Embracing the journey. Alone. Again. Hashtag no labels, hashtag own your story, hashtag creative nomad. I felt the blood drain from my face. Alone. Again. The knot in my stomach twisted tighter. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I didn't need to care. Not anymore. But that damn line, alone, again, dug into me. It wasn't just a post. It was the same narrative she'd been selling to the world, and it was wrapped in this romanticized notion of freedom and independence. But I knew better now. She wasn't alone. Not really. I could feel the anger rising in my chest, something sharp and cold. It wasn't just about her playing her game anymore. It was about me, about how she'd been pulling me along, feeding me these lies until I couldn't even tell what was real. The worst part? She'd probably never know how much I saw through it. She'd probably never care. I put the phone down, my hand shaking slightly. No more scrolling. No more paying attention to her curated world. I was done. I grabbed my jacket, grabbed my keys, and left. I needed to get out. I didn't care where I went. I just needed a change of pace, something different from the suffocating mess of memories and half-hearted attempts at moving on. The bar was a few blocks away, and I went straight there, not bothering to check the time. The usual crowd was already gathered. The buzz of conversation, the clink of glasses, the hum of laughter. It was a temporary distraction, but it worked. I sat at the bar, ordered my usual, and tried to blend into the noise. But even there, I couldn't escape the thoughts. It was like they were attached to me, and I couldn't shake them off. The bartender slid my drink over, and I swallowed half of it in one go. Rough night. Des's voice cut through the static, and I looked up to see her standing next to me, eyebrows raised, concern written across her face. I didn't bother to lie. Same old shit. She pulled up a stool and sat down, leaning her elbows on the bar. She's still messing with your head, huh? I looked at her for a long moment. Yeah, she's still out there, living her picture-perfect life, and I'm, well, here. Des let out a low whistle. I've seen it before. People like her, they're always going to put on a show. They want you to stay part of it, just enough for the validation, but never enough to really be in it. I took a deep breath and downed the rest of my drink, the burn doing little to calm me. I can't keep doing this. I thought I'd be able to let go of it easier, but every damn time I think I'm done, something pulls me back in. You can't change her, Marcus. You know that, right? I nodded, rubbing my temples. I know it. But I hate feeling like I've been nothing more than a stepping stone for her. Just another piece in her perfect puzzle. Des's expression softened. Look, I get it. You put in the effort, you tried to be there for her. But at the end of the day, she's the one who chose the game. And you're not playing anymore. You made your move. Now, you've got to stick to it. Her words hit harder than I expected. She was right. I had made my move. Now it was time to stop second-guessing myself and get the hell out of the game. I don't know how, I muttered. I don't know how to just stop caring. You don't have to stop caring, she said, eyes locking with mine. You just have to stop letting her define your worth. You're more than whatever role she's trying to fit you into. You always have been. I looked at her for a long beat, and something clicked. I didn't need her to validate me. I didn't need Alice or anyone else to tell me who I was. I already knew. Yeah, I said quietly. I think I'm starting to get that. Des smiled, nodding approvingly. Good. It's about damn time. I took another sip of my drink, feeling a little lighter. I wasn't free yet, not completely. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could see the path ahead. And it wasn't through her. It was mine. The next couple of days felt like a slow burn. I kept telling myself I was done with Alice. But the more I tried to move on, the more my mind would wander back to her. Back to the way she'd made me feel like I was just a small part of something much bigger. It had been a couple of weeks since I'd walked out of her place, but the sting of her indifference hadn't worn off. I didn't expect closure. I didn't even want it. What I wanted was to know if it had meant anything to her at all. I knew the answer already. It didn't. I tried to distract myself, tried to focus on other things. But then came the text from a random number. I hadn't saved the contact, but I could already feel my pulse quicken as I opened it. It was Alice. Hey, Marcus. I was hoping we could talk. My thumb hovered over the screen for a moment, the familiar urge to respond creeping up. I had nothing left to say to her. No more explanations. No more rationalizing. But there was still something about the words, we could talk, that gnawed at me. I stared at the text long enough for my frustration to bubble over. I hit block before I even realized what I was doing. She didn't deserve any more of my energy. But then, a few hours later, another notification lit up. This time, it was an email. I opened it, my eyes scanning the subject line. We need to talk. I want to explain everything. The words felt like a punch in the gut. I gripped the edge of my desk as I read her email. She went on about how sorry she was, how she'd been distracted by her career and didn't realize how much she'd hurt me until now. She talked about how she valued the time we had together, but it was clear to me that nothing in that email was genuine. It was a scripted apology, just enough to make her look like the reasonable one. I wasn't falling for it. I sat there staring at the screen, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. She thought I'd just roll back into her world like I always had. She thought I'd forgive her. I wasn't that guy anymore. Instead of responding, I closed the email and went about my evening, determined to ignore the urge to check her social media or revisit the memories that still clung to me. I wasn't going back. I couldn't. The next morning, as I walked into the office, the phone rang. The number was familiar. Alice. I didn't answer. I didn't even look at the caller ID when the next one came through, or the one after that. Eventually, they stopped. But that wasn't the end of it. I thought I'd be able to shut her out, to let her fade into the past, but I couldn't. It was like I had a hole in me, one that I couldn't fill, no matter how much I tried to bury it under work or alcohol or distractions. Every time I thought I was close to letting go, she'd show up again, on my phone, in my email, on my mind. I wasn't ready for what happened next. The phone rang again, this time an unknown number, the kind I would usually let go straight to voicemail. But something in my gut told me this was different. Something made me pick up. Marcus. Her voice came through the line, shaky but clear. I know you don't want to talk to me, but please, just hear me out. I stared at the floor, fighting the urge to hang up. The anger in my chest was sharp, but hearing her voice still had an effect on me. I was tempted to tell her to fuck off, but instead, I let the silence stretch out. She had to know this wasn't easy for me. Marcus, she said again, quieter this time. I've been thinking about everything. I didn't treat you right. I know that now, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want to make it right. I want to try. I clenched my jaw. She was still trying to play me, still trying to turn the tables. My pulse pounded in my ears. I couldn't believe it. After everything she'd done, after how much she'd used me, she was still trying to make me feel sorry for her. I took a deep breath, holding the phone tighter. It's too late, Alice, I said, my voice steady but final. You made your choices, and I'm done. Please, she begged, and for a second, I almost believed it. Almost. Please, just let me explain. I know I messed up, but I don't know what I would do without you in my life. That last line hit hard. She'd always known how to twist things. Always knew how to make me question my own feelings. You don't need me, I said, voice cold. You've been fine without me for a long time. You're not going to change now. There was silence on the other end of the line, and for a brief moment, I thought she might hang up, but then she spoke again. Marcus, I never wanted to hurt you. Well, you did, I replied, my voice low, angry. You wanted the fantasy, Alice. You wanted someone to keep you grounded while you built your little empire. But you never gave a damn about me. Not really. I could hear her breathing, steady but shallow. I wasn't sure what she was going to say, but I didn't wait for it. I've heard enough, I said, cutting her off. I've given you enough. It's over. Don't call me again. Before she could respond, I hung up. And just like that, something inside me settled. It wasn't relief exactly, but it was closure. Finally, I didn't need to listen to her anymore. I didn't need to let her back in. The silence that followed her call felt different than it had before. It felt like peace. I stood up from my desk, breathing deep, like I was stepping out of something heavy. Alice was gone, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The weeks that followed Alice's call were quieter than I expected. The phone stopped buzzing with her texts and calls. I didn't hear from her, and in a way, that felt like the loudest silence I'd ever known. The absence of her presence, her constant noise in my life, left a strange void that I didn't know how to fill. At first, it felt like freedom. I could breathe again. I could go about my days without the constant weight of her manipulation hanging over me. But then, it started to feel like emptiness. The kind that gnaws at you when you realize you've spent too much time in someone else's world and forgotten how to live in your own. I'd gotten used to seeing everything through the lens of us, even when I knew it was a lie. Now, all I had was me, and I didn't quite know how to deal with that. The company was busy, of course. Work was never really the issue, but the hours felt longer, like I was running on autopilot just to get through the motions. I told myself it was just a phase, that the dust would settle, and I'd figure things out. But what they didn't tell you about breaking up with someone like Alice was how it didn't just shatter the relationship. It shattered everything you thought about yourself, about the things you had let slide, and the person you'd become because of it. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about me. One Friday afternoon, when I was scrolling through emails, I noticed something I hadn't expected, an invite to the rooftop lounge downtown. The same place Alice and I had reserved for our anniversary a few years ago. The one spot she loved, the one she'd kept telling me was so us. I hadn't been back since, and the thought of stepping into that place made my stomach churn. The email had a single line from Des. Meet me tonight. I've got something for you. I stared at the words, already knowing what she was up to. She was pulling me out, pushing me to confront the world again, even if I wasn't ready. Part of me hated the idea. The other part, the part that knew I needed to get out of my head, was already preparing for it. I showed up at the lounge at 7:15. The city skyline glittered above, and the hum of people chatting and clinking glasses filled the air. It felt like a completely different world than the one I'd been living in for the past few weeks. One full of pretension, the kind of place Alice thrived in. Des was already seated, a glass of whiskey in front of her, looking at her phone with a bored expression. She didn't look up as I approached, so I slid into the seat across from her without saying a word. Didn't think you'd show up, she said, setting her phone down and giving me a sideways glance. Wasn't sure I should, I muttered, scanning the room. The place was still the same, still shiny and polished, full of the kind of people who didn't really matter. But it was different now. Because I was different. Yeah, well, Des said with a smirk. I knew you'd be here. You always show up when it counts. I didn't answer. Instead, I grabbed the drink she'd ordered for me and took a long sip, letting the burn calm some of the edge inside me. You been thinking about it? She asked, leaning back in her chair. Her eyes were sharp, but there was something else behind them. Something like understanding. Like she already knew what I was going through. The whole moving on thing? I set the glass down, my fingers tracing the rim. Moving on. I repeated. Feels more like standing still, you know? She raised an eyebrow. Yeah, I get that. Moving on is overrated anyway. I didn't answer her at first. The noise in the room, the conversations happening around me, felt distant now, like I was in a bubble. It was easy to pretend I was fine when no one could see how much I was still carrying. I don't know how to just. I trailed off, unsure how to finish the thought. I wanted to say something like, I don't know how to stop caring, but I couldn't admit that to her. Not yet. You're never going to just stop caring, she said, cutting through my thoughts. But you can start living your life again. Just start with the basics. Get back to who you were before her. Before all this. I nodded, but her words didn't seem to stick. Yeah, maybe. Des leaned in, her eyes serious now. You have to trust me on this. You've been stuck in her world for too long. You need to step out of it, or you'll be waiting for her to make the next move for the rest of your life. I took another sip of my drink, letting her words sink in, even though I hated how much truth there was in them. You've got to stop letting her take up space in your head, Marcus, she said, softer this time. She doesn't deserve that. I looked up at her, meeting her gaze. She wasn't just talking about Alice anymore. She was talking about me. About the way I'd let someone else define my world for far too long. I exhaled slowly. I know. Good, she said, pushing her glass aside. Now, stop making excuses. Get out of your head. And just be here, with me, tonight. I hesitated. The thought of stepping into the world again, really stepping into it, not just floating along, felt like an insurmountable wall. But Des was right. It wasn't about moving on. It was about getting back to me. I took another deep breath and nodded. All right, I'm here. She smiled, leaning back in her chair. Good. Let's make tonight count, then. I raised my glass, meeting her eyes. For the first time in weeks, the weight of the world didn't feel so heavy. It didn't feel perfect, but it felt real. And for tonight, that was enough. The rest of the night with Des felt like a breath of fresh air. We didn't talk much about Alice or anything too heavy. Just spent time catching up, shooting the shit, and getting drunk enough that the edges of everything started to blur. For a few hours, it was easy to forget that my life had been in pieces not that long ago. But as the bar started to wind down, the clock ticking closer to last call, I felt the shift, the quiet realization that this was all just a temporary escape. I'd spent so much time running from the pain, and for the first time, I felt myself slowing down, settling into it. Des must have picked up on it, because when I stood to leave, she caught my arm. Where are you going? She asked, her voice softer than usual. Home, I said, forcing a grin. Got a lot to think about. Yeah, I'm sure you do. She tilted her head, like she was seeing right through me. But don't make the mistake of thinking you can keep running forever. You're gonna have to face this shit eventually. I let out a half laugh. I know, but for now, I think I need to be alone. Her eyes stayed on me, that look of understanding never leaving. She didn't say anything, just squeezed my arm, letting me go. I walked out of the lounge into the cold night air, the city streets buzzing with life around me. For a second, I stood there, just breathing it in. I don't know what I was waiting for. An epiphany, maybe. A sign that everything was going to be okay. But nothing came. It just felt like waiting. I got into my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, the engine roaring to life. The road stretched out in front of me, familiar but somehow foreign. The night felt heavier now, the weight of the last few weeks pressing back into my chest. I tried to focus on the drive, but my thoughts kept returning to Alice, to the way she'd looked when I walked out, to the things I still hadn't said, even though I knew she didn't deserve them. She'd reached out, again. I'd ignored it, but that damn email, that text, still lingered in the back of my mind. She wasn't giving up, and I hated myself for wondering if she ever would. I didn't pull into my usual parking spot when I got home. Instead, I parked a few blocks away, wanting to walk, needing the space between me and everything else. It was late, and the streets were quiet. I could hear the soft echo of my footsteps against the pavement, my own breath cutting through the night. Everything felt a little more real when the world was still, when it was just me and the thoughts I couldn't escape. I made it back to my place, unlocked the door, and tossed my keys on the counter. The apartment felt even emptier now, the silence swallowing me whole. I had to confront this. I knew I did. But the idea of seeing her again, hearing her voice, feeling that pull, the temptation to slide back into the person I used to be for her, it made me sick to my stomach. I reached for my phone. I wasn't sure what I was doing, but I opened the email she'd sent. I read it again, slower this time, the words slicing through me like a blade. I want to make things right. I want us to talk. I've been thinking about everything we shared, and I can't walk away from that without trying to fix things. I stared at the screen, the words blurring together. I didn't know what I expected. Some grand apology? Some perfect explanation that made everything okay again. But no, she wasn't sorry. She was still trying to manipulate the narrative, trying to twist this into something that she could control. I didn't have to respond. I already knew what I had to do. I'd made my decision. But even as I hit the delete button, I couldn't stop the part of me that still wondered. What if she was telling the truth? What if she did care? I threw the phone on the couch, pushing the thought out of my head. I didn't need to care anymore. I couldn't afford to. I stepped into the kitchen, poured myself a drink, something strong to clear my head, and leaned against the counter, staring out the window into the darkness. I couldn't keep living like this, caught between the past and whatever I thought she might be. The reality was simple. Alice didn't care. Not the way I needed her to. And I couldn't keep chasing something that wasn't ever really mine. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of clarity settle over me. Maybe I wasn't done with the pain, but I was done with the lies. Done with her. It was time to move on, for real this time. I took a deep breath, the weight lifting just a little. There was still a long road ahead, but tonight, at least, it felt like I was walking in the right direction. And maybe, just maybe, I'd stop looking back. The next morning, I woke up to a barrage of missed calls and texts. I hadn't even checked my phone before I left the night before, and now, as I grabbed it off the counter, the screen was flooded with notifications. Alice had found a way to worm her way back in. She'd sent another email, another message. Her name stared at me from the screen like a blinking reminder that I wasn't as free as I'd thought. I stared at the phone, every part of me wanting to throw it across the room. But instead, I opened the email. I'm not going to stop trying, Marcus. I understand if you need time. But please, let's talk. I need closure. We both do. The words dug in, but this time, they didn't feel like an invitation. They felt like an ultimatum. Like she was still trying to control the way I'd process this, the way I'd think about us, like it was still something she could fix. I deleted the email without responding, but the anger was already creeping in. She was still playing the same game. The one where I was supposed to bend to her whims. The one where I was supposed to care enough to give her one more chance to explain herself. It wasn't happening. Not today. Not ever. I pushed the phone aside and went to the kitchen to make coffee. My hands were steady, but my mind wasn't. I felt like I was still in the middle of some unfinished battle, trying to get my footing after everything had fallen apart. I didn't want to keep reliving this. And that's when the second message came through. It was a text from Des. I don't know what's going on with you, but I'm hearing stuff. People at work are talking. I cursed under my breath. I'd been avoiding Des since I left the bar. I hadn't meant to shut her out, but the weight of everything had kept me from reaching out. And now she was on me, too. I'm fine, I typed, hoping it was convincing enough. Don't lie to me. She responded almost immediately. What happened? What are you going to do? I leaned against the counter, staring at the screen. What was I supposed to do? Tell her the truth? That I was still struggling with the decision to block Alice out? That the temptation to fall back into old patterns was still there, taunting me every time I thought I was ready to move on? I'm done. I typed, the words heavy on my fingertips. I've blocked her. I'm not going back. Des responded with a thumbs-up emoji and then added, Good. You know she won't stop, right? You've got to stay firm. I sighed, the weight of her words sinking in. I already knew what she meant. Alice wouldn't stop. She'd never stop trying to get back in. But I couldn't let her. I didn't want to be the person who kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. I didn't want to keep being someone who was used, who was needed for the sake of someone else's image. I had to be done. The phone buzzed again, but this time, it was my sister. Hey, Marcus. We need to talk. It's about Alice. I stared at the message. I could feel my blood pressure rise. I didn't want to talk to anyone about her anymore. Not my family. Not Des. Not anyone. This was my fight to finish. I took a deep breath and started typing back, my fingers moving more slowly this time. I'm not talking to anyone about her right now. Please don't. A few minutes passed before my sister responded. I'm just trying to help. You know, everyone's been saying things about her. About how she treated you. I almost laughed at that. People were talking? Now, after everything had come to a head, they were finally saying something? I didn't need anyone's validation. Not now. Not after everything I'd been through with her. I don't need anyone's help. I'm fine. Another pause. I could feel the judgment through the phone, even without her saying it. I don't think you are. I closed the conversation and tossed my phone on the couch, pacing the room. The texts, the emails, the calls, everything Alice was trying to do to get back in. It was starting to feel like a constant assault. But I wasn't going to let it break me. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I grabbed my jacket, pulled on my boots, and headed out the door. I needed to go for a walk, get some space between me and all of this noise. The streets were still cold, the air sharp and cutting as it hit my skin. I felt like I was walking through a fog. It wasn't just Alice I was trying to forget. It was all of it, the past year, everything I'd let slide. The way I'd allowed myself to be so wrapped up in someone else's world that I'd lost track of my own. I needed to clear my head, to stop thinking about what she wanted and start thinking about what I wanted. And that's when I realized I didn't know what I wanted anymore. All I'd known for so long was her. Her plans. Her life. Her world. It was time for me to figure out what I wanted. What I was willing to fight for. The walk didn't answer any of those questions. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was suffocating. I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew I wasn't going to let anyone take my life from me again. Not Alice. Not anyone. And that was enough for now. The walk did nothing to quiet the noise in my head. As I turned the corner back toward my apartment, I could still feel the weight of the decision pressing down on me. Blocking Alice, cutting her off, all of it had felt like the right choice in the moment. But now, with space between the anger and the emotion, I was starting to second-guess myself. My phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my thoughts. I grabbed it, my stomach sinking as I saw the name on the screen. Alice. I didn't even bother looking at the message. I knew exactly what it would be. Another, we need to talk. Another attempt at pulling me back into her world. I let it ring until the voicemail kicked in, then I tossed the phone in my pocket without listening. I wasn't doing this anymore. I wasn't going to let her drag me back into her narrative. The rest of the evening was quiet. I made dinner, sat on the couch, and tried to ignore the nagging feeling that kept telling me I was missing something. I wasn't sure what it was, but it felt like I was on the edge of something. Something big, something I couldn't quite grasp. And then it came. A text. A few hours later, after I'd already convinced myself that I was done hearing from her, that I was done listening to her. There it was again. Alice. I'd blocked her. I'd shut everything down. I didn't need this. I didn't want to feel that pull anymore. But I opened it. I just want you to know, I'm not trying to hurt you. I need to know why you're doing this. I need to know why you're really walking away. My thumb hovered over the screen. For a second, I almost typed back. I almost gave her the satisfaction of a response. But then I remembered what Des had said. About staying firm. About not going back to something that had already fallen apart. I set the phone down and paced the room, trying to shake the frustration out of my body. It wasn't just Alice. It was me too. I was letting myself slip back into the same toxic cycle. Why was I still giving her this much space? Why was I still letting her live rent-free in my head? I didn't want to care. But God, it hurt. I took a deep breath and grabbed my phone again, this time to text Des. I'm doing it again. A few seconds later, the reply came, what are you talking about? I'm letting her back in. I don't know why I keep doing this. Des's response was quick. Don't. Just don't. Don't let her back in. Not after everything. It's hard. She sent a single reply. I know. I stared at the message, feeling the weight of it settle. Des wasn't here to sugarcoat anything. She knew what I was doing to myself. I didn't need to explain. I just had to stop. I got up, paced a few more steps, then grabbed my jacket. I didn't care where I was going. I just needed to get out of the apartment. I needed air. The city was quieter than usual. The streets were empty, the kind of empty that made it feel like the world had paused, waiting for me to catch up. I kept walking, not thinking, just moving. Each step felt like I was putting more distance between myself and all the things that had been suffocating me. A few blocks later, I found myself in front of a small park. The benches were empty, the street lamps casting long shadows. I sat on the edge of one, staring at the sky, the cool night air brushing against my skin. What was I doing? I didn't want to keep running. I didn't want to keep questioning everything. I wanted to just be. It was then that it hit me. The piece I had been missing, the thing I couldn't see before. It wasn't just about Alice. It wasn't about the phone calls or the texts or the constant back and forth. It was about me. I had been so focused on fixing things with her, so determined to make it work, that I had stopped thinking about what I needed, what I wanted. I had been so wrapped up in her world that I had lost sight of mine. I had to fix that. I stood up from the bench, feeling the weight in my chest lighten just a little. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back. I wasn't going to keep living in her shadow. As I walked back toward home, the urge to check my phone one more time hit me. But this time, I ignored it. Instead, I focused on the sound of my footsteps, steady and deliberate. For the first time in a while, it felt like I was walking toward something. And for once, it wasn't her. The next few days went by in a blur. I kept myself busy, work, errands, random distractions to keep my mind off everything. But the more I pushed things away, the more the thoughts piled up. And they weren't just about Alice anymore. They were about everything. It felt like the whole damn world had been revolving around her for so long, and now that I'd stepped away, I didn't know how to recenter myself. My mind would race through what I'd done wrong, what I could have done differently, how I could have been a better version of myself for her. But then the anger would flare, and I'd remind myself, no more. Still, it wasn't easy, and I wasn't sure when I'd start feeling like myself again, if that was even possible. But what happened next shook me more than I expected. I got a message from Des. It wasn't a text this time. It was a voicemail, and that alone told me this was serious. I stood still for a second, staring at the phone in my hand. I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to hear about more drama, more fallout, more shit that kept pulling me back into a world I didn't want to be part of. But the voice inside my head that told me to stay firm couldn't ignore it. I pressed play. Hey, Marcus, it's Des. Her voice was tight, almost too tight. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but I think you need to. Alice, she's been posting again. You should check it out. It's not good. I felt my stomach drop as soon as the message ended. I'd been trying so hard to ignore her, to stop letting her live in my head. But now this was real. I'd heard enough. I opened Instagram and scrolled through the feed until I saw what Des meant. Alice's face stared back at me, but it wasn't like any of the polished posts I was used to seeing. This one felt raw, almost too raw. Sometimes you have to burn it all down to rebuild. It's not always easy to walk away from people who don't see you. But that's the price of self-love. I'll get through this. I always do. It hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just a post. It was a message, a way to frame everything that had happened between us. She wasn't talking about me, but I knew. She was. The subtext was as clear as day. I was the one she had walked away from. The one who didn't fit her perfect world. I was the person who didn't see her the way she wanted to be seen. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, the familiar mix of anger and disbelief. Was this really how she was going to frame everything? Was this how she was going to tell the world she was some victim when all I'd done was try to show her that there was more to life than her damn image? I felt sick to my stomach. I tapped the screen and opened her profile. There were more posts, more captions just like that one. She was playing it up like she'd somehow been wronged by me, framing our breakup as this grand act of self-liberation. I gripped the phone tighter. It was like she was rewriting the story, flipping the script, and I was just left there in the margins, forgotten. My finger hovered over the screen, the urge to do something, to call her out, to leave a comment, to say something, nearly overtaking me. But I knew better. I'd been down that road before. Every time I engaged with her, it dragged me further into her world, into the game she controlled. And I wasn't going to let her control me anymore. I closed the app and threw my phone on the couch. I stood there for a minute, breathing through the heat in my chest, the frustration building. Then, something shifted. It wasn't the clarity I had been waiting for, but something close. I didn't need to prove anything to her. I didn't need to show her that I was right or that she was wrong. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need to keep looking for validation in places I wasn't going to find it. I just needed to let go. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but now it felt like it was less about her and more about me. More about the way I'd let myself get caught up in her world. More about the way I'd let my emotions get tangled in something that was never going to be mine to control. I took a deep breath and went into the kitchen. I poured myself a drink, the burn settling me down, helping to silence the thoughts for just a little while. The rest of the evening passed in a haze of half-empty glasses and muted conversations with Des, who kept checking in, making sure I was all right. I didn't have much to say. It wasn't until later, when the city outside was quiet and my mind finally slowed down, that I realized something important. I didn't have to carry her story anymore. I didn't have to keep reliving what had happened between us. I wasn't going to chase after something that had already broken. For the first time, I felt like I could finally breathe. It took a few more days for things to really settle. I hadn't heard from Alice again, and after that last post, it seemed like she had finally moved on, at least in the way she did things. She was still out there, playing her game, but I didn't care anymore. I had stopped looking, stopped searching for signs of her. But the aftermath of everything, the emotional wreckage I hadn't fully processed, still lingered. It wasn't until a week later that I got the legal notice. I was sitting at my desk, the quiet of the apartment filling the space between thoughts, when the mail came. It was an envelope I didn't recognize. A formal-looking one, the kind you don't want to open but know you have to. I could already feel my stomach knotting before I even tore it open. It was from Alice's father's law firm. I stood still for a second, staring at the envelope, the weight of it sinking in. What the hell was this? I had no idea what she was trying to pull now, but the fact that her father was involved made it clear this was going to be another round of manipulation. I opened it, my fingers stiff with the tension. The letter was short, direct. This is a formal request to cease all contact with our client, Alice Devereux. Please be advised that any further communication with her will be considered harassment. Alice has decided to take legal action to ensure that this matter is resolved fully. I read it twice. Then I read it again, trying to make sense of it. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly at how ridiculous it all was. She'd gone as far as involving her father's legal team to cut ties. It wasn't about moving on. It wasn't about putting an end to things for her. It was about control. Always about control. I threw the letter on the counter and paced the room, feeling a mix of frustration and disbelief. How far was she willing to go to prove she was the one in control? Even after everything, even after I'd cut ties, this was her final move, a legal threat. But the anger that flared didn't last long. Something inside me snapped, but this time it wasn't rage. It was something else. It was finality. I was done. I grabbed my phone, pulled up my contacts, and sent a quick text to Des. She's gone full legal now. Her dad is sending me letters. I'm done with this shit. I waited for the response, not expecting much. Des knew me too well. A minute later, she replied, "You're done. Finally. Just remember, this isn't your battle anymore." I exhaled, the weight lifting a little, but not enough. There was still the looming presence of everything she'd done to me, still the nagging feeling of being used, of being part of something that was never really mine to begin with. But this letter, this final attempt to control the narrative, this was it. I threw myself into work after that, determined to keep moving forward. It wasn't like things were magically better. The emotions were still there, deep down, still tangled up with what I thought was real. But now, I wasn't going to keep chasing ghosts. The phone didn't ring again. The texts didn't come. I didn't check her social media. The silence stretched out, and this time, it felt like a breath of fresh air. The following weekend, I took a trip. I needed to clear my head, really be away from all the noise. So, I booked a cabin in the woods, far enough from everything to actually be alone. There was no signal, no distractions, just space to think. I spent the next couple of days hiking, cooking, sitting outside at night watching the stars. It wasn't about forgetting. It wasn't about pretending the last year hadn't happened. But it was about giving myself the room to heal. By the time I drove back to the city, the knot in my stomach had loosened. I was still pissed about the way things had ended, but I didn't feel the weight of it anymore. It didn't have a hold on me. I stepped into my apartment, the place that had started to feel like a refuge again, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I took a long breath and just let it out. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it was mine. As I sat down on the couch, the phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from my sister. "Mom wants to know if you're coming to dinner next Sunday. We're trying to put everything behind us." Let me know if you want to come. I stared at the screen for a long moment, considering. I didn't have to go. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. But the truth was, I wasn't running from them anymore, either. I'd been the one hiding. Hiding from myself. Hiding from what was left of my family. I didn't owe them my presence, but I did owe it to myself to stop living in the past. I typed back, I'll come. Let's see if we can't start fresh. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. I didn't need Alice to get the closure I thought I was looking for. I had it all along. I was free.